Yeah, hello together. Global economics. We have talked about the business cycle in general, and that we, within the economic data, we can also see historical events. And then we started to grow through Germany with a specific example, looking at the main indicators. We talked a lot about economic growth and how to get out then the average growth numbers, having different frequencies, quarterly or yearly, what is meant by price seasonal and calendar adjusted. And the next one was then that we had a look at um, the inflation numbers for Germany. And since we will use all this in our data file, I just open it. Here I also recommended that maybe for your country you can have a look if they have specified some inflation target, and then you can see how the performance of the monetary policy within your country is relative to this inflation target. Yeah, question? Yeah. Yes, yeah. Well, you can see if you start going into the internet looking for data, sometimes it is not that easy to get reasonable data on a quarterly basis. There you can have a look, especially to find really these price seasonally and calendar adjusted data. For some countries, you can find it easily, but for others not. So especially for this, it's also okay if you just look at the yearly data, but especially when you have a look at interest rates or inflation, and I think also mostly for at least for the European countries for unemployment data. So even then, for interest rates, you got even daily data because, of course, at the capital market, it is fluctuating every day. Maybe you need to use daily data, but actually, especially in order to look at the actual situation of your country, then it would be quite nice if you find these monthly data, maybe not for economic growth, but for inflation and interest rates. I think there you get it always, because otherwise you have only the year 2024. And in the first half or until now, really interesting things have happened in the world, which are economically relevant. And for this, just ending up with data for the year 2024 is then maybe a bit boring to look at, because especially if you look at the trade numbers, there it changed heavily due to the new economic policy in the United States and also in China. And you will, especially in the relation to China within your countries, you will see that China is always one of the three largest trading partners of your countries in the most ways and in the most cases. Yeah, well, let's say for economic growth, it's okay because it's not that easy to get the right data for inflation and interest rates, especially, and I think also in for unemployment. So if you have problems, then just ask if I can help you. But I gave you many possible sources. Go through them, and there you will find it. Because this is also what this term paper is about. Of course, for every country, you can go to the World Bank, and on a yearly basis at the World Bank, you get for every country in the world your data set. And this term paper is also about just digging for data in the World Wide Web to find the reasonable numbers. Okay, then next one. This was inflation. Then let's take unemployment. Well, I had here just the links. So actually, almost always go to the central bank of your country. They are providing very often a good quality of data. So this, I think, will be again the yearly basis. No, this is already the monthly basis. Okay. Then let's download this. Open. Oh, is it coming? There. There it is. So since we are starting from 2008, let's also start from 2008. Unemployment. And let's have a look. Up, this one. Where is it? There. Yeah, and if you see here, just looking at the monthly time pattern, then hopefully you remember this within a year time pattern, which is always coming again every year. So this is then the seasonally time pattern that in general in Germany the number of unemployed people will rise during winter time, especially because of the construction sector. You can also think of the sector of tourism in Germany, that the people are during winter time laid off, and it's going down in spring again. Well, and this will be then interesting for your country. In Germany, we can really say that we have seen almost 10 years or more than 10 years only one direction of the development of unemployment. So here you have this continuous decrease of unemployment after the financial crisis. Well, and if you then have a look at the demographic change in Germany, then this is maybe one of the main reasons that almost every year the dropout out of the labor market in Germany is 200, 300,000 people more than young people are coming. And so, well, the politicians were always quite happy to announce almost every time, well, maybe the economic performance overall is not that great within a year, but the labor market, these were always the statements, the labor market is very robust. So, and actually here, there you had this minimum of 2.1 million people, and this has corresponded to an unemployment rate lower than 5%. It was roughly, I think, 4.3 or something like this. And for this, we even could say that we had, until Corona in Germany, a situation of almost full employment. This was a situation of almost full employment. Do you remember why we call a situation not with no unemployed people as full employment, but with positive unemployment rates? Why do we call a situation in a developed economy where we still have unemployed people? So where, of course, also 4% unemployment rate. This is still a number. Why do we call this a situation of almost full employment and not calling only a situation where no people are unemployed as full employment? Yeah. Yeah, great. Because this is then the definition. Full employment is every willing people is employed. So we have the labor capacity. This is roughly 44 million people, 45 million people in Germany. And out of these people, especially due to our social security system, there are a relevant number, 1 to 2 million people, which just say, well, it's enough what I get out of the social security system. I'm within this framework, I'm not willing to work. And yeah, and then we had, of course, here again Corona, and there we have to be, of course, a little bit careful because, well, this is a very small rise of unemployment in Corona. It just rose by, yeah, roughly 500, 600,000 people. Actually, within Corona, we had much more. In some month, we had more than 7 million people laid off. But within the statistics, they do not appear because we have invented the instrument of short-term work. So they were paid more or less from the public, had still their contract because we had the hope that Corona passes by, and then they do not have to be re-employed, but they directly can start to work again. So Corona was really a special situation. As I mentioned, you do not have to focus that much on this Corona period. Say something, maybe write one page, I think, would be enough, and then go further because then, yeah, when we look at this situation here since Corona. Unemployment continuously increases in Germany. Well, and this is of course quite interesting because the framework of the demographic situation didn't have changed. It is even, this effect speeds up right now. I think in 2029 it will be the largest gap. It will be then roughly 600,000 people roughly dropping out. 600,000 people more are dropping out within a year than are coming from below as the number of young people. And therefore, this increase is, in my opinion, quite dramatic for our economy because this reflects now the situation that this coincides with the very bad performance of economic growth. If you go here, then you see after Corona, the development of the real GDP is very flat. It even decreased a little bit. And this, of course, then has also an impact on the labor market. And especially when you then have a deeper look in Germany, you see actually the core of our industrial production, the automobile sector, really struggles. 2 weeks ago, one one of the main factories of the intermediate goods for automobiles, Bosch, the largest intermediate good producer in the world in automobile sector, he announced that he is going to lay off 12,000 people. Not all in Germany, but it will be a relevant number in Germany, 2 or 3,000 people. And yeah, this should be then somehow the story which you should tell, that you look at the number, not only describing the single number, but then also show the dependencies of the numbers to each other, that you all overall then get a whole economic picture of the performance of your country within this analysis. Okay, what else did I said? Exports and imports. There. No. Steuerung and clicking at this. Accept. Okay, this where I think this where these numbers, hopefully. There it is. So, and then exports and imports you obtain from the expenditure part. And here, preisbereinigt, this means then price adjusted numbers. Let's take this one, these ones. Well, here we can use quarterly data. These are the, no, it's yearly data. Okay, then let's use here yearly data. Let me try the other file, because there I think we got quarterly data, which will be a little bit more interesting. So here, this is skipped, sorry. Yearly, then this one. Also, they are changing. This is always a pity that they are then changing their provision of the data. Okay. Maybe you will find these problems also for your country. Then let's have a look at the yearly data. Let's take both the nominal ones and the real ones. Also starting from 2008. Exports and imports. Exports, imports, and this were billion euros. 2008. And billion euros. Please be careful that also in your term paper, every relevant thing is then written in your diagrams. Because otherwise I do not know what you are showing. And the real ones, I think they were here. This is the index starting from 2008. And this is real. And this was the index 2020 equals 100. All this information you then also have to provide when you are showing such diagrams. Oops. Data, these two we don't want, and this is now the development of real trade, and what is shown, the index 2020 equals 100. So let's copy both. Real trade and nominal. Yeah, and I think just comparing here nominal and real numbers is also quite interesting because in general you find here in nominal terms X is always larger than imports in your country. So from this you have a positive trade balance, while when you are getting rid of the price effect, this is the same way as you do the price adjustment when we talked in macroeconomics from nominal GDP to real GDP. This is just then done with the export prices and the import prices. Then you really see here that in real terms, since Corona, the index of imports is larger than exports. So here you already see somehow the change of international trade, the situation for Germany. And this more or less then means that we can say that the export prices have moved up quite faster than the import prices in the last 4 or 5 years. And this, of course, is a quite bad situation for Germany because for Germany in the history, the uh, the trade was always something kind of a push factor for economic growth. And if this now relevantly changed in general, then of course the whole economy in Germany has to change. Because one of the positive impact factors for economic growth won't be there in the future, supposed to be. And what can we also say until Corona, both exports and imports were growing, and since then we see a stagnation. And if you go then a little bit deeper, then yeah, you will find the reasons because in general the framework of global economy has changed since then, and especially since 2024, since the election of Mr. Trump in the United States. And I think you will see also impacts of this change of international trade during the last years in general, not only due to Mr. Trump, but in general, this decoupling and de-risking effect. So we see in general the decoupling and de-risking in trade numbers of Germany. And it will be interesting how this looks like in your country. Maybe it differs and they found some special goods. If you have a smaller country, this could be possible that they really found a special goods which pushes overall exports in this country. Think, for example, about Taiwan. Taiwan is providing almost 90% of the high performance chips for the world. Therefore, this country is very interesting for China because they have one single good which the whole world needs. Maybe you find also something for your country. So, next one, exchange rate. Well, there we have to choose the euro for Germany. I think I gave to everybody a country which does not have the euro, so that you really can think about a singular monetary policy. So yeah, this is monthly data. Let's take this one. For exchange rate, of course, you can get also daily data. Again, from 2008. Oh, this is also a good example. I will talk a minute because here you see you get an Excel file, but in order to manipulate your data, you have to change the data a little bit. Or euro, US dollar. Here you have to change the format. The date. Oh, this is daily data. Okay, no problem. So this is euro to US dollar. Here you have also to be a little bit careful that you look at what you are providing, if it's the so-called price representation or the quantity representation, because of course in exchange rate I can provide euro versus dollar or dollar versus euro. So for today, what did we have here? Let's see. Where we are. Oops. Oh, I think I fetched the wrong data. Because why? The exchange rate 1.7. This couldn't be wrong. Couldn't be right. This can't be right. Oh, I've took Australian dollar, as you see. And I want to have US dollar. The US dollar I find down here. Next one. And again, oops, 2008. Now, hopefully we have the right one. 1.16. This is more reasonable. But if you go to US American web pages, there you won't find a 1.16, but you will find the reversion of this, that you will find an exchange rate of 0.86. Well, and the reason for this is you just change the view. The Americans look at us and we look at the Americans. But of course, the number shows the same. And there you then have also to be careful if you are providing the price or the quantity representation, because then it means just the other way around if exchange rate is appreciating or if it's depreciating. Therefore, you have to be a little bit careful. Yeah, what we have also here, I have here some dots within my data file. So I want to get rid of this. And oops, Control H, letting this in. This is the dot. No, this is a dot. And just deleting all these dots, because otherwise you cannot represent the data carefully in a diagram. Or where you also have to be careful is in the representation internationally of data. So in the United States or also in the UK, the data is provided with dots if you have a decimal number, and in Germany we have a comma. And if you use the German version of Excel and you download the data with dots, then it will be interpreted as a date. And there you have here the possibility in options to change this. Or what you can also make is just to change the data before you feed it in to Excel, that you change all the dots in commas. So this is the other one. This I don't need anymore. And back again here. And let's see what has happened to the exchange rate. Oops. Why do I have now all these? Oh, there are still the dots. This was the reason. Why didn't I get rid of them? Again, nothing, and all. These are now both, and you see what I have done again. And now I have deleted every dot, and now it looks better. Yeah, and well, in general, we have an overall depreciation of the euro, let's say coming from 1.6, from 1.6 euro to US dollars in 2008 down to roughly 1.15 euros to US dollar. So this then in general also means that the import has become more expensive for us. And for your countries, well, let's say for your countries, look at the exchange rate versus the US dollar and maybe also to the main trading partners, because this has an impact on exports and imports. And there maybe you see also some dependence. If you have a depreciation or the appreciation relative to the largest trading partners, that vice versa, ex and imports are also decreasing or increasing. Or not. Maybe then you find some other reason why you don't have an adjustment. Then interest rates. So for this, you have learned as a benchmark for the interest rate level of a country. In general, we look at the 10-year government bond. So let's go down here and yeah, here we now take the monthly data, 10 years. And also from 2008. Where is this? Here. Or let's say 10-year government bonds. And in percent. Um, Yeah, and what we see here, we had really the situation that starting from the financial crisis, interest rates went down to zero and even below zero. And this, of course, was due to the monetary policy, that the main interest rates from the central bank also dropped in the negative area. In parallel, to central bank interest rate. Well, I think I had also a link here for the interest rate. Yeah. Let's take this one, then I can just copy the picture for today. It will be, I think, enough, or this doesn't work anymore. This is nice. Okay. Then let's take the other one. Main refinancing. And also starting from 2008, here we are. Up. Is this possible? Main, oops, well, let's directly put this into our picture here. Why is this not coming? Data. This should be both, but then this one. Still, I'm puzzled. Where are my other numbers? Not coming. So then let's try it again. here we have now both. Oh, this is again the wrong one. I have downloaded again the wrong one, sorry. This one is the right one. And now again percent, and let's take this one here. Roughly like this, and you see that it is in the direction not 100%, but roughly in parallel, following the main rate of the central bank. And then you have here this interest rate shock after or because of the Ukraine war. And the rise of inflation. So of course, then looking at the interest rate, it is reasonable to directly also look at the inflation rate. Let's take, where did we had inflation? This was here. And then you see more or less that we have this steep increase of the interest rate. This was an answer of this increase of the inflation rates. Well, and also remembering your macro course, then it would be also interesting to put inflation and interest rates together, because these are now here nominal interest rates. And hopefully you remember the Fisher equation, how we get real interest rates out of inflation and nominal interest rates. So, good idea to calculate real interest rates, and this can be done using the Fisher equation. And remember that then, so to speak, we have to depreciate nominal interest rates via the price effect. Because think of, you buy government bonds with an interest rate of 4%, but in the same period, prices are increasing by 5%, then of course, in nominal values, later on you have more money. But since the prices have increased more than you have got out of your investment, this means although you have more money, you can buy less. And this is mostly the thing what is all about. You think, am I better off in the end? And therefore going to real numbers. And this was given by the famous equation 1 plus r, while r is the real interest rate, equals 1 plus I, nominal interest rate, divided by 1 plus pi, the inflation factor. So I, nominal interest, pi, inflation, and R, real interest. Well, and since we have the nominal numbers, interest rates, we have the inflation rate, you can directly go into your data and then we can just calculate real interest rate. Where do I have the inflation here? So inflation from 2008. Here you have to be a little bit careful because here we have calculated the inflation rate given the CPI, the consumer price index, so it is a formula. If you know now, just only copy it, then you will take the formula. And then of course you get other numbers, and therefore if you copy these numbers, you have to choose here to, again, let's say copy, no, this is, let's say, copying these three numbers, right click, and then you have to choose here pasting the numbers and not the formula. So if I would just copy this here, I get then anything because he doesn't know what to calculate here. But maybe you already know this. So what else do we have here? Then you have also to be careful. This is 0.027. This means 2.7%. Here we have 4.1. This is 4.1%. So this number here is 100 times the other number. So in order to apply, given this data, your formula, calculating the real interest rate, you have to calculate 1 plus the nominal interest rate, the 4.1, but this is given in percent. So this number you have to divide by 100, dividing by, oops, the inflation, and the inflation is already given in the right representation. So please do not divide this also by 100. And of course, in order to get then the interest rate, you have to subtract 1. -1. I have forgotten. Sorry. I'm talking about it and not doing it. Quite nice. So here we are. And going back to the percentage representation. And showing the numbers. And what we see here is then this situation that already the 5 years before Corona, we had negative real interest rates. So inflation, although it was quite low, but the interest rates were even lower, we had the situation of negative real interest rates. And then, well, we had here also negative nominal interest rates. So it is not that surprise, but it's even larger, this effect. But also in this situation, although the interest rates have also increased very steeply, again, inflation have increased much faster. So in this time, we also had the situation of negative real interest rates. Yeah, and such a situation is therefore quite interesting because this should, in general, then, yeah, push that you just spend your money directly. Because go into the capital markets to secure a bond means that you lose money over time. And but on the other hand, in quite many countries, we didn't see this, that consumption was really pushed during this situation. And maybe you find there some explanation for it. And I think some guy has chosen Switzerland as a country. Yeah. And then, of course, it will be really interesting because the situation for Switzerland, looking at the real interest rates, will be even worse. There we have even much more negative nominal interest rates and inflation. And still, if you look, for example, then in your country for the development of the exchange rate, you still see that you have an inflow of capital. And then you can ask yourself, well, why still the people giving the money to Switzerland, although you are losing your money? Okay, so, well, this was a second. This we don't need then. Here we have the key interest rates. Maybe also, well, this is now the main interest rate of the European Central Bank. What would be also maybe quite interesting for your country, since you have smaller countries, that you could look at the development of the main interest rate of the ECB for European countries and for the Federal Reserve, and then maybe you can interpret relatively the development of the key interest rate of your country. Compare also the key interest rate of your country with the development of the ECB and the Fed, because these are, of course, the two most important central banks in the world. And in general, you will see that somehow the smaller central banks follow the large central banks. And then, of course, it will be the interesting part when you have somehow in some years a different development. What was then special in these countries? So, but this then we can skip. And what else? The last one, government debt and the fiscal deficit. Oops. So my link is broken. Great. Uh, where did I get fast enough the right one? Public finance. This it should be. This is the Maastricht. This should be then the right one. 24, yeah. And from 2008. And in million euros. Data. Oops. Government debt. This is the deficit. And this deficit is in million euros. And then let's have a look at the debt. Uh, um, Schuldenstand, this one. This, where did I get the time series? There, Germany. Here. Hmm. This seems reasonable. Also 2008. Debt. And in this case, well, the absolute number is quite hard to interpret what means it for the whole economy, and therefore you calculate the relative number with relation to the nominal GDP. And I think here I find the nominal GDP. Where did it? Here. GDP. I should find it here and from 2008. It could be also possible that for your country you directly find this time series, which is showing it in percent of GDP. So GDP, but now you have to be careful. These are billion euros. And then let's calculate here GDP in percent. Oh, not this one. Deficit in percent and GDP in percent. So the deficit in millions divided by billions, so 1000 times GDP, hopefully. And here also million euros divided by 1000 times GDP. This is, oh, there's a plus. And there's also a plus. Now it looks better, yeah. And in percent, this is quite good. And yeah, maybe for the European Union or the European Monetary Union, you won't have for your countries, I think, such numbers, but there we have the so-called Maastricht deficit criterion that it shouldn't be larger than 3%. Let's here also let's multiply it by -1 because we are talking about the deficit in general, and that we can provide it as positive numbers, and then the Maastricht criterion would be 3% for the deficit and 60% for the debt. This is wrong one here, and Maastricht debt. And let's see how it looks like. And zap. No. Something in the representation is wrong here. Deficit debt in percent, Maastricht. Why do we see here 100? Oh, Yes, I know. This is the wrong representation. Here, this one. No, it's better. Government debt and government deficit. This is deficit, so this we want to get rid of this. And here we have debt, debt, okay. Government debt and government deficit. Here. So there you see for Germany, this is the increase because of the financial crisis. And then you see, well, this is once due to the quite good economic performance. This means that the denominator, the nominal GDP, was quite increasing during this time. The fiscal situation was, but was even better since we have very, very low interest rates. So the interest payment of the German economy, of the German government, was very low. And if you look at this here, we had even negative nominal interest rates. And this meant that we could finance via credit, getting 100 and, so to speak, repaying only 99. And so, therefore, we also were, because of the interest rate situation, more or less earning money for the fiscal balance in the German economy. And maybe you find also such a situation for your country. So debt ratio is going down, and in this year, Germany had even negative nominal interest rates. Well, and here you see also the deficit. Negative means that we had an overall surplus in the fiscal balance. So here, corresponding to this downturn, we had here a fiscal surplus for almost 10 years. And then, of course, it increased. So this was the financial crisis. and this is Corona. But then again, and this corresponds to the bad performance in the economy overall, for this flat development of economic growth. It is not a big surprise that within these times we have a quite large deficit during these years. So since Corona, Germany has still a large public deficits. Yeah, and then I'm done with just going to some main indicators. I hope I gave you also some hints where you can look specifically for your countries. Yeah, maybe go through this, and you may also find some other interesting parts, but this will be then more or less the, yeah, so to speak, descriptive part of your country analysis. I showed you maybe also how you can manipulate the data. So please do not take some papers and then copy and pasting the pictures out of them, because quite often you want to focus to other periods, and in the representation that this wouldn't be really nice. So really try this term paper to crunch some data, so to speak. And then the next week we will go to this dependence between economic growth and unemployment. There we will make this linear regression, and therefore I go also to this statistics part with you. So maybe, I don't know if you have done in your introductory course linear regression, but I will explain it to you. Okay, so thank you very much. So, yep, okay. Okay, then you can pick some country now. Let's see. Term paper. So just have a quick look. These are the countries left. You can picture, yeah. Is it free still? Okay, yeah, why not? So then let's go to the model course. Yeah, so Turkey will be really interesting if you look especially at the monetary policy situation, because you have the influence of the government onto. So he is more or less, yeah, saying the opposite. What you will learn here about economics, how the dependence is between inflation rates and interest rates. Well, he is, yeah, and also this is maybe then for Turkey also an interesting part, because you have the official statistics about inflation rate, and maybe you can look somehow to get a clue where is the real numbers of inflation rates. Maybe you find there are some sources which are doing estimates from, I don't know, some other services, surveys or something like this, because we know that the official data is wrong. Yeah. Okay, so now I need your email. What's your name? No, this one? Okay, good. So, um, let's put you into Turkey. Yep. No, this hasn't worked. I think roughly 10 minutes or something like this. Yeah. Yeah, now I think we almost here 20 people, so it will take some time. For this, you just have a look into the model course, I would say. I provided everything here. Yeah. No, not for the presentation. Well, 10 minutes and then. Also, you mean the presentation? Just 5 or 10 slides, something like this. Yeah. No, no. Hmm. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. New Zealand. Let's see. Yeah. This is also an interesting country. So, and your name is? There you are. Good. Great. So, um, New Zealand. Here we are. That's it. You're welcome. Yep.